Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about a potential prequel. Two of my favorite videos that I've made here have been about prequels. One was a prequel to Beetlejuice. If you haven't seen that, check it out here. Another was a prequel to Aladdin. Because if you think about it, both Aladdin and Beetlejuice really do have interesting backstories that are worth exploring. Today, I wanted to imagine a prequel for another movie. Now, this movie is not as well known as Aladdin or Beetlejuice, but for those who do like it, it's a whole rich universe, and it is The Fifth Element. The Fifth Element is a really great movie that has a unique visual style, and it's also a unique story. They did a great job of creating a world. It takes place in the 23rd century, so it's this future where the main character is a taxi driver. He drives a flying taxi, and he meets this alien, Lilo, who is herself, spoiler alert, although this movie came out like a long time ago, she is the fifth element. And what it is in this story of good versus evil, there are these four elements: earth, wind, water, and fire. They need a fifth element to activate them, and those elements together will stop this great evil. And the great evil is a sort of giant ball of darkness and destruction that is threatening to destroy the entire universe. Now, I can imagine a movie, The First Element, right? And this movie would take place thousands of years before The Fifth Element. So you actually don't have to worry about continuity of characters or anything really. This is setting the stage. This is, the Prometheus of aliens, right? And in this movie, we can imagine the beginning of the Mondoshawan race, which I think is how to pronounce what Lilo is, right? She's this, they're supposed to be like this genetically engineered, perfect race of people that can embody that fifth element. So we can see the beginning of that race. We can also see at the start, again, thousands of years ago, the start of the malevolent force, which becomes the great evil, right? We can sort of imagine that beginning to stir in darkness and sort of grow. Just as we see hints of the great evil's presence through, mysterious catastrophic events and distant worlds being destroyed, we can also see a focus on the Mondoshawan race, and they are sort of aware of this shift, aware of the rise of this great evil and their plans to try and stop it. Of course, they kind of have to be maybe a spiritual kind of race, something to do with earth, wind, water, and fire, is somehow very deeply embedded into their civilization. And while they believe that the four elements that they wield are very powerful, they recognize that they need a fifth element, which, again, in the movie The Fifth Element, we find out that the fifth element is actually love. The fifth element is only released when the two main characters sort of, become joined, essentially. But so, again, this ancient race of aliens will recognize a sort of need for a fifth element. And, of course, the struggle will come from within, right? So there would need to be maybe a faction of like rogue alien Mondoshawan people who want to control the stones and maybe don't think there needs to be a fifth element, or I don't know what the struggle would be. I do think it would have to be somebody from within that group who kind of betrays them and joins the great evil somehow. But the end of the movie would end with, of course, them being victorious, but victorious maybe only by leaving a cryptic message for future generations, warning of the great evil's return and the necessity for a fifth element. And so that last scene would kind of tip the hats towards the movie that we all know and remember, The Fifth Element. Again, I think you could borrow a lot from the visual style of The Fifth Element, and I think it would be much improved. The Fifth Element was from 1997. I just looked it up. So imagine taking a 1997 sci-fi film and updating the visuals to today. I'm sure they'd be able to do lots of amazing things. And yeah, again, I like the idea of exploring prequels for movies. Let me know if you do too. And I think The Fifth Element, while it is not itself really well recognized as like a series, it was just a one-off movie, I do think they did a good enough job of world building where we can imagine a prequel to it, and I think that would be a fun one.